Shalom, Bracha, and welcome once again to Mitzvah of the Week. After a 1 week hiatus due to the Pesach holiday, we are back. We are a division of Parasha Study Plus, and underneath the umbrella of Tanakh Study. This week we are reading Parashat Shemini, and the mitzvah that we'll be tackling is a negative commandment, the mitzvah lo ta'aseh of shtuye yayin b'mikdash v'shelo yore halacha shatui, which means that it's the abuse of wine, basically, as it pertains to going into the mikdash to serve God while one is drunk, and also for the elders of Israel, who are the leaders, who are giving forth, let's say, hora'ah and piskei halacha while drunk. That is, those two items are completely forbidden. They're mitzvot lo ta'aseh in the Torah. So this mitzvah also will give us some great musad as to how to treat alcohol and liquor in our days. So let's get started with the slides. First is the reason why I chose this mitzvah for this week. We're deviating a little bit from the overall theme of Vayikra and Korbanot, because this is the harrowing story, in this week's Parasha is the harrowing story of the death of Nadav va'Avihu, the two sons of Aharon. And we'll see that this has its connection, as the reason of why they perished does have, according to many of the Mefarshim, is the reason why is because they went into the Mikdash to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu while they were drunk, while they were intoxicated. So let's just take a look at the story. It's in Vayikra Perek Yod. Vayikhu b'nei Aharon Nadav v'Avihu ish mahtato vayitinu bahen esh. So the two sons of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, he had four sons really, each one of them took a mahta, which is a pan, fire pan. V'yitinu bahen esh, they put the fire in it. Vayasimu alea ketoret, and they put incense on it. Vayakribu lifnei Hashem esh zara, asher lo siva otam. He put an esh zara, which means a foreign fire, an alien fire, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not command them to. Next pasuk, Vatetze esh milifnei Adonai, vatochal otam, vayamutu lifnei Adonai. A fire came out from Hashem and consumed them, destroyed Nadav va'Avihu. Vayomer Moshe el Aharon, Hu asher diber Adonai lemor, bikrovai ekadesh, v'al penei kol ha'am ekabed, vayidom Aharon. The very famous pasuk where Moshe has to tell Aharon that this is what Hashem, who's being harsh with his brother, said, that it's going to, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to show himself to be holy and glorified, again, by this punishment, and Aharon was silent and accepted the punishment of the death of his sons. Very powerful story. We mentioned it also on Yom Kippur, the death of Aharon's sons before we take out the Sefer. And the rabbis, most famously Rashi, quotes Rabbi Eliezer, and of giving the reason why Rabbi Eliezer felt that this happened to Nadav and Avihu, and then Rabbi Ishmael. So let's see. This is Rashi on Pasuk Bet that we just read. Rabbi Eliezer said, Lo metu b'nei Aharon ela ayedeh shehoru halacha b'fnei Moshe Rabban. They broke ranks, and the fact that they gave a psak halacha against Moshe Rabbeinu, they gave halacha of those matters in front of Moshe when it was appropriate to bring the korban, them bringing the korban. There are other opinions as to what exactly they gave as halacha l'ma'aseh in front of Moshe, but that's inappropriate and that could not be tolerated. Rabbi Ishmael says, for the thrust of our mitzvah, says, Amar shtuye yayin nichnesu l'mikdash. Right? It says, no, they were intoxicated when they went into the Mikdash. And again, that's Hayav Mitah, Bidei Shamayim, as we're going to see. Teda, and it should be known, Shahar Mitatan, he is here and notarim, Shelo Yikansu Shtuye Yain La Mikdash. And what's the proof? Very logical proof, and probably the most pshat of the reasons as to why Nadav and Avihu perished. Immediately after this event, there's a warning to everybody that they shall never be, it's never allowed to enter into the Mikdash while one is intoxicated with wine. So we see that that's coming down. This is Perek Yod, Pisukim Aleph through Gimel, what we read. If you look at Pesukim Het through Tet, right after this event, already we're getting this sin introduced to us, that a person is not allowed to enter the Mikdash drunk. From where to where? Obviously, if there's a connection that this is what, now that Nadav and Avihu did it, we need to make sure that people are warned, le'olam va'ed. This next slide has, again, it's a very important Mefaresh, the Kli Akar, who brings down, and I broke it down for you just so that everybody can see, that there are many different reasons as to why Nadav and Avihu perished. So, and I brought them, and the Kli Akar brings them down, and we see each time it says V'yesh Omrim, it's a different reason. The first one is that we said. Another one, and the same thing with Shtuye Yain, meaning you're not prepared to come and serve when you're drunk to come into the temple. Also, that they did not wash their hands and their feet. Again, utter disrespect to the Mikdash. That they didn't wear the appropriate bigdei kehuna. And the cloak was not properly donned. Was not donned at all. That no, they did not have children. That they did not marry women. Again, reasons that they could not be, they were not fit for leadership, and they took that leadership upon themselves. As we mentioned, that they passed halacha over to the people without with circumventing Moshe. Also, that their actions were done without consulting Moshe, which is not allowed. When is it our turn? They were very haughty and saying, this is our chance. We see an opening, let's take it, as a rebellion. Also, that the sin of Aharon, their father, finally caught up with them. This, together with the Chet HaEgel, warranted such a harsh punishment. So again, we see the reason why I brought this slide is just to show you that there are other reasons other than Shtuye Yain that they went into the Mikdash drunk. In my personal opinion, that's the one that I think speaks most accurately to the Peshat of the Pesukim, as we see, and the reason why the Torah would strongly forbid it as well. So now we're going to talk about this mitzvah Kuf Nun Bet 152 in Sefer HaChinuch. Shelo lihikanes shtuye yain b'mikdash. People who are intoxicated may not enter the temple. V'chen shelo, right, yoresh shatui, right, a person shall not give over halachic psak while they are intoxicated. It's the same mitzvah, two different aspects. We'll tackle both aspects right now, and we'll close with some musar, which is very pertinent. So Sefer HaChinuch says, "Shelo likanesh shatui b'mikdash." A person cannot enter the temple intoxicated. V'chen shelo lehorot, and also a person cannot give a ruling while drunk. Kelomar, as if to say, "Shelo nadun v'davar midinei haTorah be'od sheyehe ha'adam shikor." You can't have clarity and give over a psak and a judgment of Torah while a person is drunk. Shneimar yain v'shechar al tesh. A person shall not drink wine or shechar, anything that comes from the barley family. When you come to Ohel Moed. So black on white, we see it in our Torah. Again, pasuk perek yod pasuk tet. This is the new, after Nadav and Avihu get killed. This is the command that the Torah teaches us about. How much does a person? What is considered drunk? For this mitzvah. So, well, if you look at Masechet Eruvin, Tav Samach Dalet, Amud Aleph, we have Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel. Rav Yehuda said, in the name of Shemuel, Shata Revi'it Yain Al Yoreh. When it comes to giving over a psak, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person has to be ridiculously tipsy, but once a person drank a Revi'it, which is about 3.3 ounces, maybe like a shot and a half, but again, wine people drink regularly out of a cup, 3.3 ounces. Person should not give hora'ah and psak halacha in that way. It's an interesting continuation of the Gemara because Rav Nachman challenges that, says he doesn't agree. He needed some wine in order to get some clarity, but the halacha l'ma'aseh is that a person should not drink a revi'it of wine before they are giving over a hora'ah of halacha ruling, a halachic ruling. Sefer HaChinuch continues and tells us what's the shoresh of this mitzvah, what's the root of this mitzvah. It's well known, yadua, she'en ra'ui lihitasek b'devarim hayakarim. It's not the right way to deal with such lofty matters, devarim yakarim, precious matters, betachlit hayakar, which is the purpose that is so dear to us, making sure that the halachot are being passed down rightly and correctly, kimo inyanei hamikdash, and also entering the mikdash with divrei Torah, rak ba'et sheyeh adam miyushav b'da'ato umechuvan b'kol ma'asav. Right, he is actually in a state of where he has yishuv da'at, concentration, he's in his right mind, and he's able to focus on things. And Sefer HaChinuch closes and says, we don't need to take our time and talk too much about things that are very simple. Sefer HaChinuch also brings down the lashon of the Sifra that says, Yain al tesht, en li ela yain, minayin l'rabot she'ar ha'meshakerim. Right, we see that the Midrash wants to build and say it only says wine not to drink. It only says wine. Where do I see she'ar mishtakarim? Tamul omar veshechar, yain veshechar. So it doesn't just apply to wine; it'll also apply to anything that can get you drunk. That is in, let's say, that the barley family, etc. But anything that is considered shechar, a liquid that it has alcoholic content that it gets a person intoxicated. So if that's the case, lama nomad yain, just say shechar and it'll cover everything. Why do you single out yain? So there's a reason. Yain is going to carry with it a greater punishment. Al hayayin b'mita. If a person drank wine and then went into the mikdash, the penalty is death, mita, albeit b'dei shamayim. Ve'al she'ar meshakirim belav, and other things that are able to get you drunk, it's going to be a lav, a negative commandment. Kamuvan yesh bo ma'aseh, and as we mentioned in previous videos, the person would get makot. Ve'sham ne'emar minayin she'en hayav ela b'sha'at ha'avodah. And then it also says, how do I know that it's only hayav mita at the time of when they're working in the Beit HaMikdash? Talmud Omar, ata u'banecha v'lo tamutu. Ata u'banecha b'mita ve'en Yisrael hayavin mita ala ora'ah. Kohanim are held to a higher standard because if they go to those areas in the Mikdash where the work in the Mikdash was done, they're the ones that can contract mita. But people who are Yisrael can never get the death penalty for becoming drunk and then going into the Mikdash. They may, if they go into, let's say, Kodesh HaKodashim, obviously, that's just stam entering places where they're not allowed to be. But going into the Mikdash, the areas of the Mikdash or the Azara where they were able to go, then they're only going to get the lav and not mita. So two things from the slide, as Sefer HaChinuch quoting the Sifra. Why did the Torah mention yayin and shechar? To tell you that yayin has a great shechar, for sure you're going to get a punishment, a lav. Wine carries with it a greater punishment of mita. And also the Midrash singles out, it applied to ata ubanecha velo tamutu, you and your children, meaning it's the Kohanim ve'olam va'ed that are going to be subject to mita, and the Yisraelim will only get the lav, the negative commandment. Here Sefer HaChinuch again continues on this slide and tells us that the shi'ur of wine that a person has to drink, and it's going to be asur to enter the mikdash or to give a hora'ah, is a revi'it. So again, I found it necessary to bring this because the Sefer HaChinuch has the clear quote from Masechet Keretot and says it's for both, and that is a clear cut of the revi'it, that a person is not allowed to enter the mikdash and not allowed to give hora'ah. Now, there's a couple of nuances. Well, I'm using this as a springboard to the next halakha that we want to go to. That it depends dependent on how strong the wine was. If the wine was very strong, or it was, and you didn't drink it all at once, or it wasn't high, high, that it drinks it without adding any water, then if any of these tanaim are missing, then it's still asur, but you're going to be patur from mita. So it was very important that the wine was strong enough with the revi'it to get the person drunk. So that this qualifies what we said in the beginning when it says, okay, how much wine? We're talking about a revi'it, but which type of wine? The wine that was not mixed with any water, and it was wine that a person drank it in one shot, and it was aged. The third Tanai is it was aged 40 days. If it was Haser, any one of these Tanaim were missing, then it was only Asur, and it was not, you weren't going to get Mita. But it's still Asur, but Patur aval Asur. And Shata Yoter Revi'it, that's if they drank up to a Revi'it. But let's say they just kept drinking more than a Revi'it. Af al pi shaya mazug, al pi shifsik v'shata me'at, then that's Hayav Mita. So, a person drinks up to a revi'it, or exactly the revi'it, you need those conditions, that it wasn't mixed with water, that it was aged 40 days, and you drank it all together. If a person did all of that, you're getting mita. If you're missing one of those, then it's just asur. If you drank more than a revi'it, you're drinking 8, 10, 12 ounces, then it could be any type of wine that you're going to be hayav mita, and it's pasul for the avodah. Sefer HaChinuch continues and highlights, and this is where we jump into our Musar portion, that at the end of this he says, Masha amru zichronav lebracha shekol kohen kasher la'avodah im shata yain harei ze asur lo likanes min hamizbeach v'lifnim. This is talking about that it's also asur, v'chen asur l'chol adam ben kohen ben Yisrael likanes lemikdash מתחילת עזרת ישראל לפנים כשיהיה שתוי יין או שחר או פרוע ראש דרך ניבול. He adds, and this is based on the Gemara, that not only can a person come in from the Azara and further in, whether he's Israel or Kohen, drunk, also if they have their hair is grown out wildly, derech nivul, which means it's a very disgusting way, or their clothing is torn or tattered. That is a very big grave sin, and it also is attached to this concept of being drunk in the mikdash. So we see that treating the mikdash in a horrible way, whether it's with the hair, whether it's with the clothing, but it's the catalyst is with not being in the right head, in the right frame of mind, with being shikor. That's also that's part and parcel of this mitzvah. So it's an interesting connection that Sefer HaChinuch is making, and it should be good musar for us. Person should, when they're always coming to Bet Knesset nowadays, where it's a mikdash me'at, or for sure visiting the kotel, etc., person should always be in their right mind for sure, but making sure that they're kept well and their clothing is kept well as well. Shulchan Aruch in Siman Sadi Tet clarifies this for us and gives it to us in a practical way, which I felt important to bring, about getting drunk before a person prays. Nowadays, so how would we be able to, we don't have a Bet HaMikdash now, so how do we keep this mitzvah? Well, we keep this mitzvah because there are many different ways. First of all, trying to control our overall alcohol intake, which we'll get to in a later slide. But Shulchan Aruch starts with making us understand that it's asur to be intoxicated while praying. And in Siman Saditet, Sifim Aleph and Gimel, Shulchan Aruch says, Shata yayin kedei revi'it. If a person drank, there's the measurement again, 3.3 ounces. Al yitpalel, should not pray. Ad sheyasir yeno, until the wine leaves his system. V'im shata yoter, if he drank even more than a revi'it, if he feels like he can talk in front of the king, then his tefillah is good. If he wouldn't be in his right mind to speak in front of the king, if he prays tefillah, if he prays at that state, his tefillah is a to'eva, is an abomination. When the wine leaves the system, he has to re-pray. Even if you say, wait a second, but I drank a little too much, but I'm going to miss the zman. I'm going to miss the zman to pray. You miss the zman, and then it'll be as if you din shogeg, where you earn the right to have what's called a tashlumin, a make-up prayer. And in Siv Gimal, Maran says, Kol echad shu shatui, sagele lefi ma shemargish benafsho, shiafig yeno. So how do we measure that? A person could go by his own measurement to say, am I good? Am I not good? Am I shatui? Can I speak in front of the king? It's based on other person's, and each and every person holds their liquor differently. So Maran says it does go based on how you can hold your liquor. But nevertheless, the liquor must be held. It cannot be that you're approaching it with not being in the right mind. And what's the right mindset? Being able to stand in front of the king, and be able to pray. So again, that's very important. The Rambam gives just very striking advice and a striking philosophy as to what our philosophy should be towards liquor in general. Again, to summarize what we've covered so far, we've seen the catalyst of this halacha being here. It's Parashat Shemini, and according to many mefarshim, this is why Nadav and Avihu perished, that they entered the mikdash, they gave their fire, their sacrifice, while being drunk and intoxicated. And we've seen that a person cannot get intoxicated, and they should approach the whole entire concept of liquor with trepidation. That's not more. Nothing is more gives us this feeling more than this apparent teaching from the Rambam. I'm reading from Mishneh Torah, Hilchot Deot, Perek He, Halacha Gimel. K'sheh Chacham Shotei Yain. If a person is a wise man, and when a wise person, it doesn't just mean a Talmid Chacham. Obviously, the context is talking about a Chacham. But if a person wants to be viewed as a Chacham, when he drinks wine, a person only drinks enough wine to help with digestion. Again, we know it's very healthy now, especially for men. Red wine, a little bit a day, while they're eating, at the end of dinner, 2 to 4 ounces, very little, just to help, along the digestive tract, and it's very healthy. But never ever to get drunk. And Rambam spells this out. Anybody who ever gets drunk is a sinner, and it's despicable. And he loses all of the smarts that he has, all of his wisdom. Again, as we said, the context is it's not yotzei pshuto. But if the chacham drinks in front of a person who's not so not righteous, right? He's not educated. It's a person who's Hilul Hashem. Hilul Hashem, mamash. He's desecrating the name of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So this is very important, and we need to take this to heart. That we're influenced by society. And unfortunately, nowadays we've seen, especially with our youth and maybe how we conduct ourselves at parties, that alcohol has definitely gotten out of control. And it's something that we need to take. We should look to the Torah and look at these mitzvot. You can't be in your right mind. You can't be, considered a chacham. You can't pray. You can't do anything positive if a person is drunk. So why be drunk ever? It's never worth it. It's against the Torah. And we'll just close with a very famous teaching by Rabbi Ikey, where in Masechet Eruvin, Amar Rabbi Ikey, b'shlosha devrim adam nikar, 3 things a person is recognized by: b'koso, ubkiso, ubkaaso. When a person what's the true character of a person? With his cup, his pocket, and with his anger. With his anger, let's work backwards. With his anger, a person should never get angry. Rambam says stay far away from that character trait. If a person is just very quick to anger and never to appease, you know what type of person he is. If he can't control his anger, you stay far away. Kiso, with his money. Is he generous? Does he steal in business? Does he have a good financial reputation? And of course, our topic, Bikoso. How does he treat the cup? Does he only drink when it's a mitzvah, as let's say to use it for kiddush purposes? Even Purim, it's never a mitzvah to get drunk. You just get a little bit drunk, a little tipsy, in order that the person has to take a nap, and then he doesn't know the difference between Mordechai and Haman during his nap. That's what it means. Never to get drunk out of a person's head, ever, never a mitzvah. And what he says when he's drunk, also what comes out of his mouth. Sometimes it's really disgusting how a person treats liquor and alcohol is really a true measure of the person. So we should take this musad, we should learn from the story of Nadav and Avihu, and we should really pay attention in this week, Parasha. And if we're not being careful with how we our intake of alcohol, we need to understand that this mitzvah is of extreme importance, and we should rededicate ourselves to it. That's it for this week. Shabbat Shalom, and we will come to you with another mitzvah, Be'ezrat Hashem, in next week's Parasha.